Welcome back to the Business Simple podcast. It's your host, James. This is going to be an episode, and I'm really excited for it. I have Brad Fraser with me from Agentic. Brad knows more about AI than any person that I have ever met in my entire life. Him and Brett are my business partners on a really cool project that will probably be released prior to this episode coming out, which is super exciting, called Your Marketer. And through the conversations that I've had with Brad over the last few months, I've been putting this all together, I've just been driven to think I have to get you on this and get you talking about this to everyone. So thank you so much for coming on and joining me.
Thanks for the invite.
No problems at all. Right, so typically what we will do for an episode like this is it has a little bit of like the person's story kind of thing at the start. And I'm really interested in yours because we actually haven't talked about it as well. I think if we could keep that, I know you've told me that story about the head office and downsizing using AI and stuff like that. What's your journey up until this point been, and how along that way have you learned so much about this thing that is so new?
So the short version was that I had a business during COVID. We had 96 staff, and we had the rate limiting factor. We just couldn't afford more people. And we had 30 people off sick, and it cost me $30,000 to fly people around to do 30 jobs. And I sort of had an existential. I was like, how the hell am I going to grow? So we had to learn AI for the business so we could take money from the head office and pass it down to our guys and girls on the ground. And that was what the rate limiting factor was, and I just threw my sort of self, head and toes into it so I could actually understand what it is and what it isn't.
And so this is, you're talking like 2020, that kind of...
2020, yeah. So during COVID, I had a company called Senior Move Managers, and my education's in microbiology and pharmacology. So I actually wrote all of the disease protocols for the retirement villages. We were a essential worker because of it. So we were in masks and gloves and hats moving old people into retirement villages during lockdown. And as you can imagine, it was horrible.
Yeah.
I think I almost cried when they took away the meat pies out of the service station because we couldn't actually eat food. We couldn't line up to the supermarket because we were working from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. at night. And we only ate service station food for 2-3 weeks. It was horrific.
That's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
And so your company, it was 96 in the head office, is that
96
correct?
total.
Right, okay.
So, across the entire country.
Nice.
11 different locations.
Sure. And so then how does AI integrate into that, and how did you begin this sort of journey with AI?
So I've always been quite technical.
Yep.
So whenever there's an issue in regards to sort of coding or software, I just teach myself how to do it.
Yep.
And then we started to work out we could start to predict the future quite accurately in regards to workload. And then just jumped on, looked online, looked on Google, and just taught myself some machine learning. But it was actually a huge need, and I was able to learn it in sort of about 2 to 3 weeks because if we didn't do it, we probably ran out of cash.
Yeah, right.
And that was a great little motivator to keep learning as fast as possible.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so so essentially the problem that you faced was, because you guys would have been busy, right? You would have been lots of billable hours, or
yeah,
was
we're pretty flat out.
Yeah.
But it was just a case of we're paying our staff extra for a danger allowance because of COVID.
Yeah.
You spend so much money on PPE, and you actually didn't know what the future was going to hold. Yeah. So we're just trying to do as many jobs as possible, but of course, people couldn't buy more retirement village units because they're in lockdown. So then we went through a big sort of pregnant pause where there was no work.
Sure.
And that was just sort of our COVID story. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay. And so then following that kind of COVID period, you still sit on the board of that company? Is
still
that
on
correct?
the board,
Yeah,
still
sure.
on board.
But you exited your piece of it, and then you've kind of...
No, still a shareholder.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we
Great.
put a GM in there probably about 18 months ago.
Yeah, cool.
So out of the day-to-day completely.
Nice.
And then we helped a few of the retirement villages take AI and use it within their own operations. And then I was able to step out completely as senior managers.
Yeah.
And then start again this sort of company with Brett.
Yeah, cool. Nice. And how's that all been since it's been beginning?
Different. Very, very different, you could say.
Yeah.
Sort of it's a nice buzzword, AI, but when you get into organisations, people's motivations for using a tool is very different. Something we didn't expect, but it's also gone very, very fast. So we're up to 6 staff now. We've just hired our 7th today, and getting a lot of interest really, really quickly.
How do you, because it reminds me a little bit of like, and I know that this is not exactly the same thing as what's going on, but like it reminds me a little bit of the buzz around, say, like Facebook advertising in like 2019, 2020, where it was just like everyone's like, I heard if you just put money from your credit card into this thing, it just gives you back 5-10 times as much, and you can just do that infinitely. There's a period of time it was almost like that, right? What's it like currently to be in a space like AI that has so much attention, and there's like the outcomes you're creating for people are absurd, and the things you're able to do are crazy. How is that at the moment?
The crazy part is it all comes down to who the business owner and business leaders are. We've come to a lot of different C-suites, and like we could 10x their revenue in 2 years, but they don't really care about that. They care about other things within the business. But if we can find really good leaders and really good sort of managers first, and then help them with AI, they can be really, really effective. So it's sort of us picking and choosing the right customers to be with, so they're actually going to be around for the long term.
Yeah, sure. Okay. And then I suppose probably like getting really, really deep into the kind of AI stuff. What do you think people don't know about AI right now that they should?
It's just a tool. Like if we look at 18 to 25, the smallest demographic ever entering New Zealand's workforce, so we just don't have enough workers at all. So every business will have AI just so they can maintain the same outputs, but it just changes where the value is. So it just makes you reassess what you're actually valuable at when you're doing work.
And is that from like a how businesses will charge perspective? Or?
Businesses will charge, how they'll operate, how many staff they'll need. So like a few different organisations will come in and we can do the same amount of work as 2024 with about 90% less people.
Yeah.
Obviously they don't go out and fire everyone, they just do 10x more work with the current staff they have.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you think the scariest things about it all are? Like what are the things people need to be conscious of?
Not burying your head in the sand.
Yeah.
Like you can go put your head in the sand, but it's still going to occur and still going to happen. The better thing is to educate yourself and actually just try it and see where it works and where it doesn't work.
Sure.
Is definitely the most important part. But also understand what the future is going to look like. I think you and I have discussed a lot, like as opposed to looking at today, what's the next sort of 4 or 5 years look like?
Yeah.
And then working backwards.
And so the way that you would kind of, maybe you can jump into a little bit as to how Agentic works with companies. So essentially your process there is, it's not so much about what your leverage is right now, it's about where your leverage is 2 or 3 years from now and building for that, rather than just going, oh, here's a robot that can do this, that I can't be, like it can help me filter my emails, or something that's not really that impactful on your day-by-day being.
Yeah, it's also like looking at the future. Like, do you think we'll be using like keyboard and mouse and like our little meat sticks to tap on a keyboard in 2030?
Probably not.
So it's like, okay, if we know that to be the case, how do we work backwards and then see how do we get a wee bit more efficient so we can, help more customers?
And so when you're thinking that, you're thinking like voice activation or something like that, as opposed to typing and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, like with the platform that we're developing together.
Yeah.
Like you can just go, hey Siri, give me more leads, and it's got all of your information, all your data, and then can create more leads for you.
Which is a frightening concept.
It's just different.
Yeah.
It's just different. The reason why it's frightening is because people haven't really dug in deep enough to see what it can and can't do. And when you start to really dig into it, you understand the limitations and you're just a lot less scared.
Yeah.
But it's still just education to learn, to know how to use it.
Sure. And so what do you think probably the things that businesses on average miss from AI? Because I know we kind of joke about the whole people are dabbling their feet and they're using ChatGPT to write them a poem or whatever. And obviously there's a level above that. I see it get misused aggressively day by day. And there's nothing that annoys me more than someone that doesn't understand it, getting it to write their email response to me or something like that. Where is it inappropriately used and where is it not used that it should be?
Think about it as a way to scale people.
Yep.
So you can give them a tool with all the world's knowledge and all the world's context, and then you can help them be a lot more efficient. Whereas people think it's only a low-level tool, it's sort of a gimmick. They don't actually understand, they actually knows their entire sort of domain a lot better than they actually do.
Yeah.
And it's like, you could have 1,000 synthetic workers working on your behalf. And I think we had that instance this morning where you actually asked us about one of our employees, and you actually asked, was it a real person?
Yeah.
And that's probably like where things are going, is you won't talk about just like the organic or the people employees, you actually talk about the synthetic and how many employees you have or AI agents working for you.
Yeah.
But people just need to start to think that it's actually smarter than everyone.
Yeah.
Like I had a really good existential sort of crisis maybe 2 weeks ago, where I was like, I always thought, I'm a wee bit more intelligent than the AI, but it finally just absolutely blew me out of the water. And I was like, okay, cool. I need to rethink the way I think about AI and how I can deploy it a wee bit faster just to scale and help a lot more people.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that I'm lucky because I just knew the AI was smarter than me from the start, but I can see why that would be a bit of a crisis. And so what do you think, because I suppose probably from my seat looking at what I know about AI is, the thing that blows my mind with it is we'll use a platform, right, and it will suck. And then we'll go away, and 2 months later someone will be like, are you using this? And we'll be like, yeah, we tried it was awful. And they're like, no, check it out, it's wicked. And you use it, and in 2 months it's gone from being like a terrible platform to now integrated permanently into our business and the way we operate because it's so powerful. What is there to consider with the rate of growth and development in AI that people aren't thinking about?
Probably about cost. So cost comes down about 10x every year. And the more cost comes down, the more use you get. The more use you get, the more training data. The more training data, the better the models can become. So it's sort of a usage thing. And so like if you start using it now and collect data, you can use that to make your models better and more informed. And actually gives you a competitive advantage for all sorts of different domains of business.
Yeah, sure.
So it's all about usage.
Yeah.
But like it might be easy to explain, like define what like intelligence is. And like the easiest way, which sounds technical, I'll give you an example in a minute, is like the compression of reality to predict the future. If you think about like you're driving a car, if there's a car in front of you that indicates left, you know to go around on the right hand side. You've compressed reality to predict where to go to be safe. But if a car beforehand has been like waving all over the road and indicates left, you'll probably pull back a wee bit and let them go.
Yeah.
Same with AI and same with like intelligence. It's just taking the same ideas and concepts and applying it sort of in work.
Sure.
In knowledge work.
Yeah, sure. Makes so much sense. And so at what point in time do you think that it's just straight up better than we are? Or do you think humans just repurpose the same way as we always have and it just continues to evolve?
It sort of continues to evolve, but people are like, they work differently. Like why they actually go to work is very, very different, whether you're an owner or an employee. And like what we've seen as status is super important to like knowledge workers, because people always talk about how special they are or their education, and they really value that. So when you introduce AI, which is infinitely smarter than them, they have quite a big immune response.
But it's also not it's not their fault, right? Like it can compress, and this is what's blown me away with this it's work that we've done through your marketer and these strategies that this thing is creating. I'm like, that's a better strategy than we write sometimes. And like when you look at a market like that, which is strategic work, it's extremely high cost of fulfillment because of the staff hours that are involved in it. But all those staff hours are really is like interpreting large pools of data to provide you with strategic direction. And so then you think about something like AI in relation to that, and you're like, that is a perfect fit, because you go, it can interpret all the data. Like not just
a lot more than that you can.
Yeah, in a fraction of the time.
Yeah, and think about like how we have like business knowledge. It's like data plus context. You look at a whole lot of ad accounts, and automatically in your brain you can see what works and what doesn't. Whereas someone who's brand spanking new, who's just been hired, takes a lot of time to sort of adapt and build that context.
Yeah, sure.
You always got the data, you always got the dashboards and the information there. And then if you have experience, that's when you start to get wisdom.
Cool.
So it's exactly the same process with AI, as we can break it down into like quite simple terms to know how we can apply it like in the workplace.
Sure. And then how does because I think the thing that I like most about what you just said is the data plus context thing. And this has been another thing that I've really learned through the work that we've done together is the context you provide. Like the context sits on you if you want it to be optimized towards the way that you want to do things. So it has the data, but if it spits results out, giving it that feedback and helping to shape what it spits out, that appears to be where the real special sauce is. It's not just. Yeah, it's
distilling your brain.
Yeah.
And like obviously you and I had some pretty robust conversations about where this technology is going.
Yeah.
And I actually remember the first conversation we had about AI, about what it can't do.
Yeah.
And then you've gone away and got more context because you've used it a lot more and actually understand what it can do, and got very excited about the future possibilities.
Yeah, yeah. We loved it for like massive data interpretation and like predicting trends and things like that. I was like, that's pretty cool. And now I'm like, oh, it sort of knows more about ads than I do. And like, which is confronting because
Yeah.
you're like, I've run a lot of ads, but you're like, I can't interpret the volume of data that it can. It sort of knows more about marketing than I do. Actually,
But it shifts the value, doesn't it? It
Yeah.
just shortens the window from initial engagement to actually delivering leads.
Yeah.
And realistically, that's all that matters for a customer.
Yeah. Well, I love it because, and we had this conversation this morning as well. It's like, I love the concept of being able to work with every company in New Zealand, but I've never been able to because the cost of fulfillment is too high unless I turned Digital Simple into a charity and I just went out and tried to start doing work for people for like Robin Hood or something. It's impossible, right? Whereas with something like this, I can put effort into it and then I can provide a product that anyone can purchase, or we can provide a product that anyone can purchase that's extremely high value but low cost for them, will have a real impact on their business without us having to sacrifice in the name of their improvement. So it creates a real win-win economy where sure we need 1,000 people to make sense of it, or 2,000 people or whatever, and we only need 100 here at Digital Simple, but those 1,000 or 2,000 people are out there and they're being completely neglected at the moment because no one's got the ability to actually be able to help them.
And what a better time with New Zealand currently the way it is, just to assist and help as many people actually understand what marketing is.
Yeah.
Like I was with a client actually this week and asked for their marketing strategy. We went through it together, but they actually had no idea because no one had taken the time to teach them what marketing is and what it isn't.
Yeah.
So again, it's just that tool to help everyone just be a little bit more effective and just help a lot more leads come in so they can sell a lot more to their customers.
Yeah, 100%. And so what are your sort of predictions around AI in terms of what the world looks like at the end of this year, maybe say like 2 or 3 years down the track and then like 5?
Yeah, so some of them are a wee bit controversial, but a wee bit out there.
Yeah.
So I think that I'd say that work from home within 18 to 24 months won't be a thing, because anything you can do on a laptop, the AI will be able to do. So there's already early releases from OpenAI called Operator, where it shows you just give it an output that you want, and it goes on your computer. It will like reconcile your accounts. It will order you your food from New World. It will do anything that you currently do on a computer. So that's in the short term. Sort of a little longer term, we're already working with one company to help build houses with robots of all things. We're a company out in Rolleston. We're actually doing the training data right now. So we've got cameras on some builders of how to build a home, and we're going to use that to train a humanoid robot. And those robots cost about $60,000 to help, because there's just not enough builders in New Zealand to actually do the work. So that's sort of where things are going, sort of a wee bit in the medium to long term.
Yeah,
but short term, a wee bit of job dislocation because of the change.
Yeah.
And because we see that divergence like we talked about between high end and low end. But longer term, more assistance. Probably everyone in 6 to 7 years will have a robot in their own home doing their washing, unloading dishwasher for quite cheap.
Which is great because those are two tasks that suck that I'd massively prefer a robot to do.
Yeah, and the cost is quite cheap. Like you're looking at probably about $40,000 to $50,000 New Zealand at the moment.
Yeah.
But at scale, that's going to come down quite considerably.
Yeah, well, I mean, you use that example of like what the actual AI itself is costing. That's decreasing at a rate of 10 times per year.
Yeah, getting very, very cheap. So like if we think about different things that like people charge with, like we actually sat down with an employment lawyer with all their partners, and they charge $1,000 an hour, and we did competition between them. It was me and the AI versus them in employment law, and unfortunately for them, I won, and that was quite upsetting to them because we can do things a lot faster than they originally could.
Yeah.
But now they realise they're actually using AI in everything they do to speed things up.
And there will always be an environment where people pay by outcome.
Always.
Yeah. And so, and sure, if someone else can come in and do it cheaper, that gives them a bit of a leverage over you. But if you're charging based on value, you don't have to worry about that. It's just those hourly rate jobs and those things that people charge super high for the retainer for this many hours and that sort of thing. I think that's where the big threat is.
Yeah, the output will be a lot more important.
Yeah.
But yeah, value will change, and where all businesses are over the next sort of few years.
Yeah, cool. And so let's say you were able to give advice to, I have these conversations all the time with business owners who aren't super technologically savvy, which tends to be our main demographic here at Digital Simple. Where do they start?
Just logging onto things like ChatGPT and playing around, hitting the voice function and just talking to it, and it actually sounds like a normal person. We're doing a lot of voice at the moment, and that will just help them understand how to use the tool. And start with just like taking photos of your fridge, taking photos of your pantry, and just say, what should I cook for dinner? and it'll spit out a really good recipe, and it'll give you an idea about how you can use it in the next task.
Yeah.
Or if you're in property, take it out, take a photo of your plans. Get it to tell you what the plans are about. Just use it every day on little small things, build confidence, and then sort of adapt from there.
Yeah. A friend of mine is building something really cool at the moment where you speak to the AI and it reads your emails to you, and then you speak to it and it kind of formulates your responses and things like that too. So you speak quite short and it will add niceties and that sort of stuff. There's all that sort of stuff where there's huge time leverage to be had as well. I love it for the concept of just trying to get the stuff off my plate that I just don't like doing. That's the main thing, I think, that appeals to me. And then there's this monstrous leverage with your marketer, which is a whole different thing. But just like practically for people day by day, it's like, don't cheat. Like, don't cheat. Don't be lazy. If, I said with the, if you're even remotely switched on, you can tell when an email is written by ChatGPT. You can tell when a guide or a piece of long form content or whatever it is written by, especially if you're not super experienced at using it and you don't know how to structure the prompt and give it feedback in a way where it will create content that doesn't look like that. But use it for leverage.
Yeah, but like also how long are we actually going to be emailing back and forth? Like if you think about our emails, do you think the email is written by me or by AI?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, it's probably AI, I'd assume.
It is.
Yeah. If you can, after this, you can teach me how to do that, that'd be great, because I'm real sick of my emails. But yeah, okay, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, we probably see voice as sort of the next big thing. Like we're actually working with a high school that we both went to, and 40% of them have like learning difficulties, but we've got like a number they call, and it actually explains it in a different way where they might actually understand.
Yeah.
So we've just got a knowledge base of what the topic might be, like Year 9 maths, and we actually talk to them and their parents about different ways to learn things.
Yeah,
so we think voice will be sort of the next frontier where everyone will use it.
Yeah.
Because people struggle with ideas written down or getting ideas out, but it's really easy to talk through something to actually understand it a lot better.
That was something that a client raised in a meeting with me the other day that got me really thinking, is they were like, we get exceptional results from our Google search ads, right? And so they were like, is there a risk there? And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, is Google search going to exist? And I was like, yeah, there's a risk there. There's definitely a risk there. And they're like, and they're not super tech savvy. So like, we know we'll be on Google for a minute now, but are you using Google search?
So do you know what cloud kitchens are, like a dark kitchen?
Nah.
So it's a kitchen that makes food that gets picked up by food delivery but has no front door.
Yeah.
So we're writing websites that have no front door for people to read, but for only AIs to read, to get the information.
Yeah, right.
So it comes up higher for like an AI search engine like a Copilot or an OpenAI search.
Yeah,
So
right.
that's how we're sort of approaching it.
So you're kind of doing SEO, but for AI voice searches.
Yeah, correct. So you can create a
That's really
string
interesting.
on sort of like a index page where it's like a basics for encoder, but it has essentially all the information about what you want the AI to pick up so that you appear first within the search results when people use a ChatGPT search.
Because that is the thing that becomes completely wild about this, right? Is like the entire... I think that social media probably has a little bit of insulation from this to an extent. Like, I think that the way that it's consumed may change over time, and I think that it will continue down this path of like maximum dopamine, minimum time that they kind of do. But people are still going to want to like see what their buddy's doing for this or what it is. But when you look at like Google, which is the company is literally the size that it is because of Google AdWords. Like, that is their secret sauce. That's where their revenue comes from. Obviously, they've released Gemini recently, and they're sort of starting to step into the space. But think about how many businesses are completely founded based off SEO.
Yeah, if you think about why Google exists, or the base function, it's a jump on to jump back off.
Yeah.
Whereas you think about social media, it's an aggregator where everyone comes towards. And if you think you can outsmart, social media when you've got a multi-billion-dollar organization just to make sure that you keep on social media longer, you're probably going to lose.
I've got pretty good willpower. And it beats me all the time. We were talking.
Does it come down to how much sleep you've had the night before?
Yeah. Well, we were laughing. Me and Brad both have children very much the same sort of age, around that kind of 7-month mark, and what I basically find is like the more tired I am, the more cheap dopamine that I seek. And the one that kind of, and I'm not saying it has no negatives, because it definitely doesn't, but when you look at like gambling, alcohol, bad stuff, scrolling Instagram reels, you go like, this is probably the least damaging to the situation.
Least mild.
Yeah. The challenge with it there though is that it's constantly in your pocket, whereas like something like gambling has a limiting factor to it, which is kind
bank
of
account,
bank account. Yeah. Although for some people that probably doesn't get in the way too much, but also like I suppose because online gambling, right, that's completely changed that space too. Like you see the people that run those online casinos. I don't know if you follow any of them on Instagram, but they've got car collections that are probably bigger than New Zealand's GDP. They've got, they're buying planes and stuff. Cool, man. Okay, and so this, I suppose, probably like what I'm, because you just know way too much about this stuff. And I know also, like, even as you just started talking about that AI search thing, you lose me. And I know that I get this in a way that's probably, like, more in-depth than most, your average punter walking down the street. So essentially, the kind of prediction or the thing that people should be considering is, A, how it could be used as a tool to leverage their existing people so that they can do 10 times the work. The businesses that figure that out will probably be the ones that survive, and 9 others will fail as a result. So you really want to be in that camp, right?
You do, yeah, and we're already seeing that in regards to whatever your margin is another company's opportunity. And when you apply AI, speed really matters. You can just go a lot faster.
Yeah.
And like we were talking about, targeting and the information that we can pick up from a whole lot of different people to sell them a whole lot of different ads. And like everything about the buy now, pay later companies.
Yeah.
There's ones over in Scandinavia that take all your bank statements, screen for what you spend money for, and they actually create products for you and serve them up as ads to you. But they haven't produced the products yet. They're just waiting for you to buy. So like for fast fashion, buy first and then they create them.
That's wild, right?
So things are going really, really quick in the way that we're going to be served information and served ads, but also the way we're going to buy products.
Yeah,
so things ultimately going to get cheaper
Yeah.
over time, but there's probably a lot more competition for businesses.
Yeah, sure. That your margin is your what is your
essentially your margin is sort of my opportunity when it comes to AI.
Yeah, that's an absurd way to think about it, right?
It is,
because if you can just fulfill the job so much faster with so much less, like our thing is huge staff costs, right? Like overarchingly, and we have no intent of reducing staff size, but if we could be 10 times the size with the same team, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, a good example of margin is like a software developer.
Yeah.
Like 2023, a mid-tier is about 150K. Now they're about 110.
Oh, wow.
So the AI can do a lot more, like we saw today. The AI can do a lot more of the coding, or the AI agent can do a lot more of the software development side.
Yeah.
So the demand changes, or the value changes. The value is like, how can you control these little synthetic workers to do that?
Yeah, right. And because that is something that, like, I mean, we looked at that website building that we did, and like the quality of that versus an AI web development platform 6 months ago is night and day.
Yeah. So like the best model so far for software development, there's only 7 people in the United States better. Only 7. So it can probably be used for your business and what you want to achieve.
Yeah, and that's out of 100 million people.
300 million, 330 million.
Yeah, right, yeah. So like a stupid amount of potential people that could be better. And so better is defined based off speed, I'm assuming?
No, based on knowledge.
Right.
So like the difficulty of coding problem.
Right, but it would be considerably faster once the coding happens. It's just the actual base knowledge point. How long with something like that do you predict it is until it's twice as good as the best person?
Probably by the end of the year.
Yeah.
At the absolute latest, like everyone will have access to their own software developer. So people won't buy like SaaS platforms anymore because they can develop all in-house. Like if you think about a CRM, for us, we could spend some money on a CRM company, or we just build our own at about $2 to $3.
What a wild concept.
Yeah, and then we can add in different things where like, with you and me communicating, we're emails back and forth. So I can now communicate with people at scale, and it cost me a few dollars. And usually with a website builder, it took less than a minute to build out a pretty good landing page and website.
Yeah, like it was actually fine. Like I know people who charge a lot of money for websites that are worse than that.
Yeah.
And like it was kind of just to show the case of the tool. Like your prompt wasn't a detailed long prompt. It was just like, build me a website for this company.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that company has no digital presence in any way, shape or form. It just went based off its name and just intelligently made decisions. Yeah. And that is what, and I suppose probably for people that are listening, that's what I'm most excited about with your marketer thing is the quality of these strategies at the cost that they're delivered at is crazy. Like they are super comprehensive. We sort of have had to go through a process of kind of almost taking information out of them because we're like, this would be too overwhelming for the average punter to read. Like, how do we make this a little bit more practical and stuff?
Yeah, so the goal is to educate and inform, not to be the most fancy or throw out the big fancy words.
Yeah.
The idea is to help people understand marketing.
And so if you were, let's just take, say, accounting as an example. If you were running an accounting business at the moment, just in the name of also trying to keep this practical, what are the things that, like, what would be step one of you integrating AI? How do you protect data properly? Because that is the other thing too, is like if you're not paying for the product, your data is the payment. Like, what are the things that you'll be putting in place?
The core part is if anything's free, you are the product.
Yeah.
So just be very, very careful, and it's actually paying for the right to sell your information. But when it comes to a sort of an accountant, I think that the roles will change. You'll be a lot more talking to people and advising as opposed to doing spreadsheets, because that can all be done automatically. Like, we are working with one of the big four, and we can help them do all of their annual accounts. We can have information come in and do better forecasting than anyone on their team instantly. But now it's about having conversations with people and going, hey, just tell me warts and all how the business is going. I'm here to help.
Yeah.
So it actually changes completely what they do on the day-to-day.
If you were, so obviously you know so much about this AI stuff, but this is a really interesting conversation to go down. If you were self-developing yourself, not an AI, like if you were trying to develop the skills that you think can't be replaced by AI, what would the things be that you'd be focusing on?
It's sort of what we hire for. So resilience, communication, and leadership. That's all that's going to matter in the future because knowledge is free. So I'll be working with people about how to communicate, how to be a bit more resilient than they currently are, and to know that, you know, it's not the worst it is right now, and trying to help them into like that next industry. But people are going to pay for like really uniquely human experiences, and they're going to pay for not perfect experiences in the future.
Yeah,
so it's knowing how you can sort of serve them.
So you think like that, like maybe like a restaurant becomes the kind of thing that is still has quite a strong value, because there's something about going to a really nice restaurant and having a human being serve you and having the chef cook it, and they do it the way it's not just like a robot everywhere and just fucking spat out.
Correct, yeah. I don't know if you've been overseas recently where they got the robot waiters that just put your food on the tray and it comes out to you.
Yeah.
Or you scan the QR code and you just pay for it online.
Yeah.
Where it's cheap, you know, good quality food, but it's cheap.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that whatever the prices are at the moment, and you want to do a high-end sort of restaurant, you double them, and you have a really, really uniquely human experience.
Yeah, sure. What do you think will happen to professions like sales and account management and things like that?
They'll become a lot more important.
Yeah.
Like with software especially, it will become about people relationships on whether to buy, because the quality will essentially be the same.
Yeah, right, because all the quality is just open source, basically.
Yeah, it used to be, how do I hire like really unique people that have unique skills and experience?
Yeah.
But now essentially that's free.
Yeah, right. What a wild thing, eh? Who would have thought? Sales. Everyone needs to go get a job in door-to-door sales.
Look, I have one of those, you know, when you sit in the middle of the malls and you ask for money. So when I was really poor and I lived in the Gold Coast, I did that role.
Yeah.
And that actually taught me a lot about like human psychology and sales.
Yeah.
And that's probably like one of those good things.
You mean like the charity fundraising stuff? Yeah, I did a few reps for charity.
Yeah,
but it's
doing those and then trying to talk to people, get them to buy a raffle ticket. Hard to do at the start. And your ego gets kicked in the mouth a few times. But it's actually a really good life skill to know how to communicate with people and just how to talk them through what you're doing and how to help them pass with their money.
Yeah, sure. And I suppose probably what is refreshing for a business owner like me is, even if I didn't understand AI, I definitely get the human factor. And I definitely get the sales piece, and I definitely get all that sort of stuff. And those are actually my drivers. And so because of that, provided you adapt, you'll be fine. I suppose where it becomes challenging is where, especially, and this is a common thing in digital marketing, is where people treat it kind of like a dark art. So they go like, I can charge you this much money because you don't know. Whereas like, that's not going to be a dark art anymore. That's going to be very light.
Yeah, exactly. And, people like to deal with good people.
Yeah.
Shock horror, it's all pretty simple stuff.
Yeah.
And if you communicate, just tell them what's going on and charge a fair price, people are happy.
Yeah,
it's all about trust, isn't it?
Yeah, cool. Nice. And so for you with Agentic, Brett obviously has been on the podcast.
Yep.
Legend also, and a part of obviously the arrangement we've got with your marketer. How'd you wind up with him?
So we met at like an accelerator.
Yeah.
Christchurch did that about 6 years ago. And then so I kept in touch from there.
Yeah.
And then I managed to convince him to come across the dark side and do this.
Yeah.
Because he was looking for something new
Yeah.
at the same time. So that's when I initially met, about 6 years ago.
Yeah, cool. Nice. And business all in all good. You guys, I mean, obviously you're growing from a staff perspective and things like that. How at such an early stage are you getting the quality of opportunity that's coming through the door right now?
It's just so different going through a second business.
Yeah.
Like first off, you forget how shit it is starting a second business. But like in your first business, it's all about how you're the hero.
Yeah.
And how you're the kingpin and how you must be the one to do all the big stuff. Whereas your second time round, you actually realize you're in the way. And like you sacrifice your salary to find really good people to put in positions to be successful. And it's about them. It's not about you.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest difference, and that's why we're going so fast, is that we've actually realised because we made all the mistakes in our first businesses, or Brett's fifth or business, that that's how you grow a business quicker.
Yeah.
Is that you as the founders, you take a big pay cut and you put people in positions to be successful, because it's not a business if you're the only person that's the key person for it.
Yeah.
Because no one's ever going to buy that business if you're the key.
Yeah. And that's something that we've talked at length about, because that has been what my life has been like at times at Digital Simple, and it's becoming less and less like that, which is a really cool experience to go through. But it is so hard to do.
But you don't learn that until you've got the scar tissue.
Yeah.
Until you realise, I remember when I was putting in our GM that I was training, and I was like, God, I was actually a really shit GM.
Yeah.
But I couldn't see that because I was in the weeds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's only when you step back out and you go, oh, actually, I should have been a lot better. But
yeah. Well, I mean, I've had like this weird protective hold over our marketing team for 6.5 years now, coming up on 7 years. And we've just employed a digital marketing lead who's kind of slotted in sort of right under me. It's sort of the second most senior role here. And I was terrified at the concept of hiring someone in and them being more experienced than me and all those things, but I was like, I know that I need to face this because this has to happen at some point in time. I've never had impact so fast with someone joining a team, and I've had some awesome people join that have done some phenomenal stuff, but just like they're just more capable than me. Like they're better at being that role than I ever could be. They have the traits and everything that aligns with it. I'm real good at being the visionary, product builder, problem solver, firefighter, like that sort of thing. They get the leadership, the management, all that kind of stuff. So
it comes down to the culture, doesn't it? Like if you give people responsibility and ownership of it, and you celebrate the wins when they win, or if you're there to help them when they fall over, or if they need help, it's a lot easier. It's a lot better place to work than, shit, I'm always going to come and check with you if this is okay.
Yeah.
Each little detail.
Yeah, for sure. And so what was, just out of curiosity, because I think we've done a heap of AI stuff, what was the process like growing the first business to 96 staff?
Pretty horrible. So like, I would not recommend having 96 staff. It was really hard during COVID.
Yeah.
So we started in Christchurch in 2015, 2016, and then I went up to Auckland for about 3 years and grew the office up there.
Yeah.
And when we started to hire people, we fell in love with like the logos on their CV, because we thought that if they worked at this big firm, that they'd vetted them, they'd actually be a really good employee.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't the case. So we had to rethink how we hired, especially when we grew.
Yeah.
And when you go to like 96 staff in 5 years, there's so many like growing pains, and you don't quite have control over the culture.
Yeah.
And that was something that was really, really difficult to rein back in after COVID.
It is incredibly difficult to rein back in, and it's funny because as your team grows, and I'm only just doing this now, like you start to develop subcultures.
Yeah,
it's something that you don't. So like there'll be pockets that will have their culture, and you have things like that. Whereas trying to keep that uniform is really good for a company and a really valuable thing to understand.
But even defining it for new employees.
Yeah.
And like we do a thing where if there's an employee coming in, we sort of rank them to see if they're better than the current people we have.
Yeah.
And if they're not, we just don't hire them.
Yeah, right.
Because we'd be diluting our culture and our people and our talent.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes really hard when you've got fires in the background that you need to put out with another staff member. But from experience, when I just try to put bums on seats, it's short-term, relief, but long-term, a lot of pain.
Yeah. Absolutely. I understand all too well.
But also, if you're a business owner, you're also kind of a bit of a weird person.
Yeah.
Like 90% fail within the first 2 years. So you got to have the mindset to go, I'll be in that 10% to keep going.
Yeah. Is it 90?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Crazy, yeah.
Yeah. I suppose like you see, so because there's 250,000 small businesses in New Zealand. We have the highest self-employment per capita rate, I believe, in the world. That would obviously be measured, so you'd assume it would be like Western society or something where there'd be farmers and stuff that essentially would be, that probably wouldn't be counted in some third world countries and stuff. But yeah, I believe it's the highest. And I suppose there's like this New Zealand work for yourself, own your own land, like independence that is drawn in. But I think when you get into working for yourself, it's really not like what you think. I was listening back to a podcast that I did the other day, and it was something along the lines of like, you can become self-employed so you can pick your own hours and you can do these things. And it's like, no, become self-employed so you can work every hour, and you don't offload all the challenges, you take extra challenges, you onboard everyone else's, and you got to have
a really high pain tolerance. And you got to realize that there's only a few people in the world that understand what you're going through. So like I always thought, like, pick your partners really well. So if it's your life partner or your business partner, nothing else actually matters. Because if those two aren't sorted, your life's not sorted. But having someone to, because like you've done it by yourself, which is quite unique, and like you're living life in hard mode, to be quite frank, mate. If you do it by yourself,
no, I agree, 100%. By the way,
like with a co-founder, you can offload those stories. And like when you're about to go bankrupt in a few weeks, you're like, fuck, it's going to make such a good chapter in my autobiography. And you have a chuckle. But I guess you've got to do that in front of a mirror and go.
Do you know what's really funny is I have, and I've never watched back on it. But I have a video on my phone of this point, and I can't remember the exact situation, but to sum it up, I was completely fucked. Like there was, like, to the point where I remember going home and being like, this is the first time in my life where I haven't been able to think of a part. Like, like usually I'm like, if I sell this, I do this, or I smack this credit card up, I make the payroll, I do this. But this was like an insurmountable hill. And I was like, I have no idea how this works. I have no idea. And so I shot a video saying that essentially to myself. I'm like, look, you're in a position right now. This is the position. You don't know what the path is, but you know you're going to find one. You're just shooting this video for your future self, for post finding the path. And that probably sums up the journey pretty well. Is it's like there's a lot of that. I agree with you. I'm jealous of my friends that have business partners that are, I see the way that they have that camaraderie that's formed through the challenges that they face together, and and
it's like it's not all like rainbows and butterflies. Like every business each year will almost go out of business. It's like on average, like that's what it feels like sometimes. And you don't have any control. But if you just keep going, things happen. And it's like it's sort of a good place to be sometimes to really refocus on what the business actually does. Because like when we're growing, we sort of got fat and happy. Money coming in, we're all good. We weren't as strict with our hiring. Kick us on the ass.
I'm the same. I'm happier when we're scrapping a bit. That's my sweet spot. That's my favourite. If we're not slightly like that, I sort of feel a little bit uneasy. There's probably some trauma or something under that I need to address to do with that.
Rustlings in the bush or something.
It's
all going well.
You just like you are drawn towards it, right? Like it's the weirdest thing on the planet. Like just a touch of strife. I don't want to be, especially with the baby stuff. Like you don't want to be fully tapped. And Jen is putting up with some pretty ridiculous behaviour at the moment in terms of like hours worked and things like that, just because of the season we're in. I'm lucky, like you said, we pick your partners, like she gets it. She's like, I know it's that season, it's all good.
Like this will be controversial again, but I always got some good advice, like what's harder to replace, your business or your girlfriend? Like I didn't answer, but I was like, that's very confrontational.
I suppose it becomes a little bit more complex with children and that sort of thing.
This was very, very early on before I had my partner, but
I did have that conversation with someone else the other day. They were talking to me about a breakup they were in, and I was like, it would be terrible to be you, to be like young and successful and have all these good things going for you and now be single. That would be awful. And they were kind of like, oh, that's a reframe. I was like, I'm like, just relax, buddy. It's all good. Like it's going to be fine. You'll know when it's, time to really worry about it and really, but for the interim, you're all good. Just, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Yeah, cool, man. All right, well, hey, I haven't got anything super pressing. We're probably sort of 45 in. I don't know if there's anything like in particular you wanted to share around AI or anything like that. Yeah, okay. And so if there was one closing note, I suppose then for, actually I've got an even better one. We have a closing question that I almost didn't ask you. Brad, if you could go back, obviously we went to the same school, so you could go all the way back to St. Bede's. You could do your entire journey over again, but you could do one thing different. What would be the one thing that you would change?
I probably wouldn't change anything, but just change the advice. Like, it's sort of like a three-parter. It's like speed matters. So it doesn't matter if it's a business, don't sit there and research all the time, just go do. Or if it's a girl across the bar, don't think, just do.
Yeah.
Be lean and mean, both in your personal life and your business. And like the third thing is like BLS, or like just be less shit.
Yeah.
Like just sit on the end of your bed and just be less shit. And things will happen a lot faster.
By be less shit, do you just mean like holding yourself to a higher standard? Or
I did about a decade in the army.
Yeah.
And I was deployed overseas, and I had a great sector commander. And we're sitting there in the heat, 40 degrees, and he turned to me, because I made a mistake, he turned to me and said, Brad, have you ever thought about just being less shit? And like, that's always stuck with me for like the last 15 years. And I just remind myself every now and then, just be less shit.
Just what an exceptional closing note. Hey, this has been fun. If anyone who's listening would like to talk to you about AI, how it can have an impact on their business, things like that, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Probably the best way is agenticintelligence.co.nz. Go across the website and reach us from there.
Nice. And hey, if you're interested, if you're listening to this, we are probably, by the time this episode's being released, going through a process of soft launching your marketer. If you want a free marketing strategy, either hit me up or talk to Brad. Well, we've got you. We would love to show you the product and what we're building. We think is pretty cool.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for coming. Hey, if you've listened this far, I really hope you enjoy it. Make sure you follow us on Spotify, check out social media, do all of those sorts of things. We're going to be continuing to release episodes throughout this year. Also, during the week or just before recording this, we crossed over 5,000 streams on the podcast. So to hit that milestone so early and to be pumping through these episodes, it means a lot. So thank you very much, guys. I will see you on the next one.